It is a profound public ceremony that provides the legal mechanism for the full implementation of the new American order, the restoration of national sovereignty under the law of the land and God's jurisdiction. To lawfully complete the shift under the law of the land, the sovereigns of that land, the American people, must give their explicit consent. That is the purpose of the UFC Freedom 250. Far more than just a sporting event. It serves as the public ceremony required under Admiralty law rules, the people's visible endorsement of the transition into America's new order. Recap: the one-year process of restoring American sovereignty. The following shows the steps that have already been taken in the dismantling of Admiralty law. America recapturing its flag, June 14th, 2025. Flag Day celebrates the adoption of the American flag on June 14, 1777. It's the true symbol of land jurisdiction and national sovereignty. It was on this day in 2025 that America initiated the legal process of removing itself from British Admiralty jurisdiction in order to restore its sovereignty and the law of the land. America asked to return to God on April 18, 2026. President Trump reads 2 Chronicles 7:11-12 to the nation as an appeal to return to God in recognition of the original covenant of 1776, the Declaration of Independence that places the nation under God's jurisdiction. Royal visit as witness, April 27th through the 30th, 2026. As the living trustee of the Admiralty-based system, the King and Queen serve as legally recognized eyewitnesses. Their presence functions as formal acknowledgement of America completing the required legal steps for sovereign independence. Fed chairman steps down, May 15, 2026. The Federal Reserve has played a central role in upholding the British Admiralty maritime law-based commercial system that powers the debt-based economy. By stepping down, it signals the shift back to American jurisdiction. The National Prayer of Dedication, May 17, 2026. This comes one full moon, a complete cycle, after the appeal to the nation to turn back to God. The National Jubilee of Prayer is the public act of rededicating America back to God, 2 Chronicles 7:14. It marks the withdrawal of consent from the 1871 commercial system that quietly gave jurisdiction back to the British maritime system and the restoration of the 1776 covenant. The new Fed chairman sworn in May 25th, 2026, Kevin Warsh, was sworn in under the law of the land, which was clearly signaled by the absence of the gold-fringed flags indicating Admiralty jurisdiction, and Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas administering the oath. Using the old system to end the old system. The transition touches every area of life, spiritual, legal, and economic. At its core is the replacement of the foreign-controlled Admiralty law-based legal and financial system that has long dominated the nation. The legal process that began on Flag Day, June 14, 2025, is now nearing completion. By dismantling this structure, America removes the foundation that protected corruption, debt slavery, and treasonous actors loyal to that system. Resistance from those who benefited from that arrangement is inevitable. The transition will involve a turbulent battle against a deeply entrenched system. The storm, quote unquote, that will precede the people's new order. Though intense, this period will be swift and necessary to remove the remaining barriers to national sovereignty. While the national prayer of dedication was an essential step in establishing who the nation would place itself under, it was not the final legal trigger for America's new order. Under British Admiralty law, a shift of this magnitude still requires a visible public ritual that demonstrates the people's consent through participation and celebration. One of the oldest tools of the Admiralty system is now being used to secure that approval. Quote unquote, Ordo Ab Chao. UFC Freedom 250 provides exactly that public spectacle, a high visibility event on the White House lawn that fulfills the ritual requirement and completes the transition to the new American order. Ordo Ab Chao. Ordo Ab Chao is the hidden motto of high-level Freemasonry. For those placed in positions of power under their god, Satan, whom they believe to be the true savior and illuminator, it is the blueprint for controlled transformation. Create chaos first, then offer a new order as the solution. Classic problem reaction solution. Their system is designed to engineer or exploit disruption through wars, financial crashes, moral collapse, social division, and fear. Once the people are terrified, confused, and desperate, the controllers step forward with the pre-planned solution, their new systems of governance, their rules, their gods. However, because humans were created as powerful sovereigns of the physical realm, these systems cannot be lawfully imposed without the acquiescence of the governed. Their operating philosophy is simple. Keep the masses ignorant, entertained, and emotionally invested in the spectacle, and they will unknowingly consent to the changes that follow. To obtain that permission, they stage public spectacles of visible, controlled chaos. When people cheer, participate, and become emotionally invested, their maritime law treats that participation as consent. According to their legal doctrine, ignorance of the law is no excuse. Once that consent is obtained, they can roll out the changes that follow. UFC Freedom 250 is using this very same tool, but this time against the enemy. The spectacle will be on a spectacle on the White House South Lawn is not directed against the American people. Instead, it is aimed at dismantling the British Admiralty system that has long exercised jurisdiction over America. Through public participation, the event secures visible support for the lawful transition to the new American order under the law of the land. Instead of using their tool to further bind the American people to their system, it is being used to bring that system to an end. The symbolism of UFC Freedom 250. UFC Freedom 250 is the dramatic event that creates a major spectacle. It is classic ordo ad chaos, a highly visible event placed on the White House South Lawn, the center of American power. The two main events. Main event, lightweight title. Ilia Topuria, undefeated foreign champion, versus Justin Gaethje, American interim champion. Co-main event, heavyweight interim title. Alex Pereira, Brazilian, versus Cyril Gane, French, two foreign fighters. While the heavyweight division represents the foreign established powers battling for control, the lightweight division represents the common people. An American fighter in the main event on sovereign land symbolizes the American people entertaining the final stage of the conflict on their own ground. The octagon cage where the fight takes place sits on the South Lawn, sovereign American land, not corporate territory. This is the same ground where the King and Queen stood as legal witnesses only a few weeks earlier. A fight inside the cage becomes the perfect public ritual, visible, emotional chaos that the crowd can cheer for. In this symbolic battle, the American crowd's loud support for Gaethje goes far beyond enthusiasm. By pouring their energy into the American fighter on sovereign American soil, the people, whether aware or not, are symbolically choosing the new land-based American order over the foreign maritime system. Their cheers act as acquiescence, the people's approval of the transition and acceptance of the storm that accompanies it. That consent makes the shift out of the old system lawful. The remaining events related to America's restored sovereignty. Several key events still remain in the process of restoring American sovereignty and completing the transition to the law of the land. UFC Freedom 250 on Flag Day, June 14th, 2026, exactly 1 year after June 14th, 25, when the legal process of removing Admiralty maritime law and restoring the law of the land began publicly. The American people will deliver their loud consent through Ordo ad Chao on sovereign land. This allows for the transition that introduces the new system for the people. G7 meeting, June 15th to the 17th of 2026. Immediately afterward, President Trump will present the American people's newly accepted new order, including the storm that follows, to the G7 leaders. These leaders represent the main powers of that old system. In their legal and ritual rulebook, a major international system cannot be dissolved in private. Trump's presence delivers formal, in-person notice that America is exiting the old Admiralty system and activating the new land-based system. This forces their acknowledgement and prevents any future legal or ritual challenge. Trump's rally to end all rallies, June 24th, 2026. This serves as a victory lap that publicly celebrates the people's consent after formal notice has been given. Military bans will emphasize land-based authority, reinforcing the shift from maritime law to the land of, oh my goodness, I can't speak. The shift from maritime to law of the land power. The performance of Nessun Dorma None shall sleep. The famous dramatic song from The Sum of All Fears was played during the mass execution of traitors and deep state fighters. Figures. With the people's permission now granted for the necessary storm, the old system's protectors shall sleep no more, as justice proceeds and their protections are removed. The Great American State Fair, June 25th, 2026 to July 10th, 2026, a massive, joyous celebration stretching from the Capitol to the Washington Monument. Through exhibits, pavilions, performances, and family events, the nation will publicly rejoice in the people's consent to end the old system, restore the law of the land, and return the nation to God's jurisdiction, the beginning of America's golden age. Independence Day's 250th anniversary, July 4th, 2026. July 4th, 1776, marked America's public declaration of independence from British rule and its placement under God's jurisdiction of the land. That independence was later quietly reversed through the 1871 Municipal Corporation of D.C., placing the nation back under British Admiralty law. On the 250th anniversary, America completes the lawful process of reversing that quiet reversal. This is not merely a celebration. It marks the symbolic and legal completion of the return to the original 1776 covenant and the full restoration of the law of the land under God's jurisdiction. The storm. The public ceremony is only the beginning. What follows is the storm. Some may question how it can be right to move forward without the people's full knowledge of these events. Why not simply tell everyone the truth? Americans already know what they need to know. They understand that the system is broken and corrupt, and corruption is rampant. What they don't understand is that their permission must still be obtained through the rituals of the very Admiralty system most are unaware even exists. Rather than trying to educate the entire nation on that hidden system, which many would dismiss as conspiracy theory or outright impossible, the president is using the enemy's own rules against it for the benefit of the people he has been elected to serve. The storm begins when the existing system starts losing its legal and economic control. Yet the storm is more than their resistance. It is the process by which the new system displaces the old one. Those who built their wealth, influence, and power within the existing structure will suddenly find that the protections they relied upon are no longer there. Corruption will be exposed. Long protected bad actors will face accountability, and the legal, financial, and institutional foundations of the old system will be dismantled with the new American order. This is the true meaning of ordo ad chao. I don't know how to say that. The difference is that it's not being used to enslave the people. It's being used to dismantle the very structure that enslaved them. UFC Freedom 250 is therefore more than a sporting event. It serves as the symbolic moment when the people give their approval to the transition and to the storm that accompanies it. Though intense, the storm will be swift, as the enemy's moves have already been anticipated in order to minimize its effects. This is not only for the benefit of the American people and economy, but for the world as a whole, as the consequences of such a transition will be felt far beyond America's borders. What follows is the dawn of a new era. America will begin healing under the law of the land, restored to its rightful place under God's jurisdiction. Other nations will soon follow. This is order out of chaos, but for a free people under God. So that's that article, and I'm just like...
All right, people.